Okay, thank you. All right. I want to see if Samantha comes on now and let everybody know that we are live and getting ready for a new session of Reader's Warehouse Recommends. Just give it another 30 seconds or so. People can find us and then we can start. Let's see. Okay. All right, well, hello everybody and welcome back to another Reader's Warehouse Recommends. I'm Thomas from Reader's Warehouse and we are live at 12 o'clock every Monday to talk about book recommendations, alternating each week between children and adult titles. Today we're talking about exciting new adult titles going to be available from Reader's Warehouse, fiction and non-fiction, local and international titles. Joining us today, we have three amazing publisher reps in South Africa. We have Amara Kabaldeen from Penguin Random House South Africa. We have Jaco Schroeder from John the Ball Publishers, and we have Sune Rapel from Blue Weaver Sales and Marketing. So thank you all for joining us today. We're going to be doing 3 rounds of book recommendations, and in each round, one of these wonderful people will be recommending a title to us, and we'll be linking the title, the author, and a link to our website for each of the titles. And we'll also be having a book blog on our homepage, www.readerswarehouse.co.za, listing all the titles mentioned today. And then at the end, I will be highlighting our top 10 best-selling titles in adult books for the past 2 weeks at Reader's Warehouse. So we're going to start now. There might be 1 or 2 people maybe joining us as well. We'll just see. But Jaco, would you like to go first with your first title?
I can go, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Shall I share my screen?
Yep, it should be shareable.
Okay, the first title I want to talk about is The Buck Who Buried Its Pooh. Quentin Coetzee, you might recognize from the little picture I added there. He's a former presenter from 50/50, that very popular sort of nature program that aired for years and years in South Africa. He's also considered to be one of South Africa's sort of top experts in bushcraft and survival. And in this book, The Buck That Buries Its Pooh, he gives you all kinds of fascinating questions and answers about all the wildlife and game in South Africa. And as we know, South Africans definitely love spending time in the bush. So sort of the stuff that he goes into, he also debunks some of the myths that we might have about certain things, like a lot of people believe that a bat might fly into their head, but apparently that is not possible. Their flying skills are just too refined. Or there's also this belief that elephants are scared of mice, but he says that is definitely not the case, but apparently they do fear bees. And then he also looks at things like the giraffe, those little sort of what appears to be horns on the head of a giraffe, which is actually not, it's just sort of bony projections that's part of the giraffe's skull. And also, did you know that when a giraffe bends down to drink water, they're not actually bending their knees, but they're bending their wrists? So those are sort of some of the fascinating stuff. He also looks, for instance, at hippopotamus. If you've seen a hippo in the wild, you might remember that they sometimes have this sort of red color, and that is not because they're sort of bleeding through their skin. It's actually some secretion that they have to protect them against UV rays from the sun. And this sort of glands is just situated under the skin. So that's also an interesting story. And what I also find quite fascinating, he talks about birds and he's asked the question, can birds fly upside down? And the answer definitely is no, because of the wing design and the way the feathers are structured. But fascinatingly, he says there is one kind of a geese that actually uses this technique when they flip upside down to fall quite sort of fast from the sky, and they use this as a defense mechanism to protect them against raptors. Yeah, so this is sort of just a brief overview. I think that will give you a nice sense of the kind of things that he discusses in this book, answers he sort of gives. So it's a book that will enlighten and entertain, and I think the perfect little anecdote to all the sort of load shedding that we have in the country. And one last little thing that I want to ask you, The zebra, is the zebra black with white stripes or white with black stripes? Do any of you know?
No, I don't know. I would say white with black stripes, but you can tell me.
Black
It's the
with
opposite.
Oh, wow.
They're black with white stripes. And as we all know, all of them have got a unique pattern that's very much like the human fingerprint.
Oh, wow. I have to say, this is such a fantastic book for Father's Day. It's like just in time, if you're needing a Father's Day gift, this is such a wonderful, book to maybe buy and give to your dad.
Yeah, and I think you can just endlessly entertain yourself with all the questions and answers.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much, Yaku, for your
Sure.
first title. And hello, Francis from Pamela. Thank you
Hi,
for
friend.
coming. Yeah.
berries that don't poo. I mean, really.
Yeah. All right, so Sinead, you want to go with your first title?
Yes, thanks, Thomas. I'm happy to go next. Let's just quickly share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, so our first title I will be presenting today is a very timely one since this event is starting on Thursday. We have the Comrades Marathon, 101 years of highlights and heroes from 1921 to 2022. This comes to us from Tom Cottrell, and this title chronicles the history of the very prestigious Comrades Marathon, how it has grown over the last century from a very humble start when only a few handful of athletes finished it, to its current status as the world's greatest ultramarathon, and definitely a very prestigious and important event for South Africa. So this fascinating story tells the tale of the Comrades Marathon's glories, disappointments, triumphs and tragedies, beginning with the early heroes in the 1970s, and when official permission was finally granted for women and people of color to participate. Bruce Fordyce's participation, South Africa finally becoming democratic in the 1990s and how that influenced the marathon, the domination of Russian athletes in the early 2000s, and also the ascent of Black runners in the 2010s. And it is very up to date. It brings us up to the last race in 2022 after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID. So definitely a very interesting read for not just athletes, but anybody who loves sports history and follows a marathon every year. So the author, author, Tom Cottrell, is a publisher best known for his Netback Runner's Guide that he brings out every year. And he's been part of the Comrades Marathon for over 30 years as a competitor, spectator, and TV broadcast support. So definitely someone with a lot of knowledge to bring to us in the form of this book. So yeah, with the Comrades coming up, we hope everyone will enjoy this read.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks so much, Sinead. And there's so many runners in South Africa and so many people who, have done the Comrades and inspired to do the Comrades. So yeah, it's fantastic that this book has come out now.
Yes, yeah, we're very excited to bring it back, especially I think a lot of people missed the Comrades for 2 years during COVID. So it's very exciting that it's back and just as big as ever.
Perfect, great. Thank you so much. Okay, and Samantha's joined us as well from Jonathan Ball. So thank you, Samantha, for making the time. So Francis, do you want to go next with your first title?
Yes, I'm sorry I was late, guys. I had to swap a vehicle, but I'm going to make it worth your while. I'm going to talk about Fling. So this is a complete romp, a complete rom-com. And from the first page you're thrown in, because this poor couple have been through 3 failed IV treatments, and sex has become a chore. I must say it sounds awful. I didn't know you had to have injections throughout and take hormone pills. And so she's gone through mood swings, and the poor guy doesn't know what to say anymore. And it's marked on the calendar when they're supposed to have sex. So all the spontaneity is gone. So they basically are doing this at night. They get into bed exhausted with their backs turned to each other, scrolling on their phones. And then they come across, she comes across it when she's driving into work one day, and there's this TV program about this man who's released this app called Fling. And it's aimed at married people who are not getting the satisfaction that they thought they'd signed up for. basically, or people that have been married for 20 years and they just want a bit of variety. But so it's a very strange app, and it's getting a lot of criticism on air because it's almost condoning an affair. So it's, you know, you admit that you're married and you admit that you're not looking for a long-term relationship. You admit you're just looking for a bit on the side. And immediately there's tweets and things coming in. Oh, how could you do that? No, it's very honest. But anyhow, so she has this idea in her head, and she thinks, you know, what the heck? I've got nothing to lose. We aren't sleeping together anymore. And unbeknownst to her, her husband has done the same thing. And guess who they meet online as their perfect match for each other? Each other! Isn't that awful? Isn't that just like, so they've kind of fallen in love all over again online, bitching and moaning about the things not working in their marriage, and then discover that it's actually each other. It's like that. Do you like pina colada? You know, that song reminded me of that.
I was literally going to say that, Van. I was like, it's a modern version of the pina colada song.
and you really like them both. They're very, very likable people. They're not nasty. They did fall in love. They do love each other, but it's just, you know, all the romance is gone. But it's back, baby. All it takes is a fling.
Yeah, this book was getting rave reviews last year when the was announced. So I think a lot of people have really been enjoying that book. So it's fantastic now that it's come here, it's been published, and we have it. So
I think it's going to divide people into the I would not and I would camps.
okay, exciting. Thank you so much, Frances. Okay, Amara, do you want to go next, or is that fine? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that's perfectly fine.
Okay, sure.
The first book I'm going to talk about is The Well-Lived Life by Dr. Gladys McGarey. I don't know if you can see very well. So she's a doctor, medical doctor, and she's 102 years old. And if you Google, I know, she's lived her life. And she's written a book about how to live a good life, basically. But she's had cancer twice, once in her 30s and once in her 90s. And if you can imagine, Dr. Edith Eger from The Choice, she did a book also called The Gift. This is very much along the lines of that. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Gladys. When she was 70 years old, her husband handed her divorce papers. And that's maybe he also needed the Fling app. But she sort of talks about that. And so she uses stories from her life and, you know, the cancer, getting divorced at 70 years old, sort of starting a practice with her daughter, and she takes stories from her life and from her patients' lives, and she comes up with these 6 tips on how to live a good life. That's, I suppose, the best way. And so there are 6 secrets that she has. And what I really like about it is that each section of the book has a few chapters on stories of how that can influence and impact your life, as well as at the end of every chapter, a practice to reinforce these lessons that she gives. So it's both practical and informative, and the stories are really interesting. So if you're not somebody who wants to do the practices, that's okay, because the stories and her life is really interesting, and the stories that she tells is really interesting. And if you're somebody who wants to include practices on happiness, it's got that as well. So I'm really, I think this is definitely one, especially in the modern times. I don't know if everybody feels that way, but just post-COVID, you realize how short life is, and there's been an insane flu going around Cape Town, and everybody I know is really sick, and like children have been in hospital and things like that. And so I think that this is just a reminder of how to take everything as it comes and how to input those practices into your life.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Thanks, Amara, for that title. All right, so now we're on to Samantha for your first title. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good.
So to get started, we have The Daughters of Madurai. This is one of those books that you start reading and then you put it down and you start reading it again and you put it down, because it's like, you know, think Khalid Hosseini, definitely up this alley. This is Junani's story, and she is basically being told that she's completely useless because she can't produce a son. Worst of all, she's just producing girls. And in India, this is a no-no because the girls are actually the ones who pay the dowry. So they are trying to get her to have a son. So she's having child after child after child. But then what her in-laws basically do is they let her keep the very first child, which is a girl, and they unfortunately murder the rest. So she is dealing with not even having to being able to hold the child before they actually take the child away. So as she pushes the child out, it's like, oh, it's a girl, let's go. So she deals with the daughters, or she can't forget that, the love that she wasn't able to give them. So that was set in 92. Then we moved to sort of present day 2019, pre-COVID. And we have this beautiful family living in Australia. And so she's got this massive secret that she's holding from her parents. And so before she can actually she gets home and she's like, today's the day, I'm gonna tell you what I've been keeping from you all this time. And she gets a call to say that her grandfather is ill and they've got to go back to India. And this is the first time that they've been back home in 10 years. And this obviously rattles a lot of cages, triggers a lot of memories for the families going back. But this is also where healing starts, and it's absolutely turns out, it's a beautiful story, but it's literally, you read a couple of pages and you're like, oh no, I can't deal with this mother-in-law. And you sort of put it down. But it is absolutely beautiful. You will put it down, but you will finish it. It won't go into your do not finish pile. So this is The Daughters of Madurai. And yeah, there we go.
Perfect. Yeah, I think this looks like the perfect book club title. If you're looking for a book club title, this is like the one to go for.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Thanks, Samantha. Okay, Yaku, you made it back. Are you ready to do your next title? Let's see. I think Yaku might have frozen. Let's see. Let's see. Are you going to be working, Yaku? Let's see if they're working. If not, then we'll go to Sine. Let's see. Okay, it looks like you might be back.
Can you hear and see me now?
We can hear you. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. So the next title I want to talk about is Bullet Heart by Beverly Rose Miller. So this is the story of 4 African brothers who fought in the Anglo-Boer War. 3 of them actually kept diaries, which as far as we know is quite it's the only diaries that we are aware that exist about Afrikaans guys and their experience during the war. The reason is that actually quite well edited. So the writing is quite eloquent, and stories are sort of told with flair, sort of in these diaries. So then she tells the story of the one brother, Michael, who reflects in his diary, waiting to be shipped to Bermuda, where he was going to a war camp. And he's reflecting on the fact that he will be missing his little son's birthday, and he's so close to his son who stays in Cape Town. Then there's also the story of the other brother, Chris, who reflects on and Michael also writing very angrily at about of the Boers were apparently the prisoners of war camps in South Africa were quite full. So 2 of the other brothers were also sent to Ceylon to spend time in prisoners of war camps there. And Beverly sort of came across these stories when she was reading her husband's grandpa's diary, which was just a small little diary which he kept of his experience of the war. And grandfather happened to be one of the brothers, Michael. And through this, she sort of connected with all these other diaries and interesting documents. So I think you'll sort of agree that this is quite a unique perspective on the Boer War. It's not sort of the dry history. It actually captures the sort of raw emotion of what these guys went through. So yeah, we're hoping this will be an interesting addition to this interesting facet of South Africa's history.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, because this also reminds me of another great book, and not book club, but a great Father's Day gift. Also like someone who likes history. So West African history. This is like a great
Yeah.
title to choose from.
Definitely.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much, Yaku, for your second title. I forgot to say we're on round 2, so Sanaya, over to you for your second title.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. Let me just quickly share my screen as well.
Okay.
Okay, so next up for us, we have African Ark, Mammals, Landscape, and the Ecology of a Continent. This comes to us from, let me just put that up again.
Yeah.
There we go. So this comes to us from Wits University Press. And even though it is a university press, this book is not overly academic at all. It was written for the general public, anybody who has an interest in the animals of Africa and is looking to learn more. Since Africa does have some of the world's most diverse assortment of large animals, so this book covers all of them. It includes the African elephant, the hippopotamuses, giraffes, rhinos, and zebras. And it tells the story of where these animals have come from and how they have interacted with each other to create the richly varied landscape that makes up Africa as we know it today. And it also highlights smaller mammals such as rodents and bats, which are often overlooked by naturalists and zoologists. So this book processes through which species and population groups are formed and how these change over time. So it's a very interesting look at the history behind these animal populations. So it is quite scientific, but it also draws on the contributions of numerous zoologists, ecologists, and conservationists. Oh, excuse me. And it is an engaging read for anyone dedicated to the understanding of Africa and its wildlife. So we also believe it would make a very good gift, and should be a very interesting read. We can have a quick look at the chapters. So you can see it covers a very wide range of topics, not just dry facts about the animals. So definitely one we are very excited about and should make a very interesting read.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And I know this is the time of the year where a lot of people go to Kruger and Addo and all these places. So for anyone who's fascinated with wildlife, this would be a fantastic title to add to their collection.
Exactly. It should be a perfect accompaniment to any trip like that.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Tanae. All right, so now we're back on to Francis for your second title.
Yeah, well, I'm staying with a salacious, slightly dodgy, but exceptionally good. So I'm going to talk about Gail Schimmel's, I think this is her 7th book,
Wow.
Little Secrets, and the subtitle is A Perfect Life, A Perfect Lie. And if you've ever read Gail Schimmel, you know that you expect that. She always has these incredibly relatable domestic scenarios, a happily married couple with a really nice kid, and then you discover a little bit later on that actually they're not so happy. So I know with Gail Schimmel now, I anticipate the sort of dodgy secret to come out. But this one really took me by surprise. So let me put it in context. It's about this couple that had been married for 20 years. He was an artist. He sort of gave it up to be an actuary, to pay the bills. And she appears to be just wonderful. She loves cooking. She loves dinner parties. She's got a personal trainer. But she's kind of obsessed about what the neighbors think and what Facebook says about her family. There are to be no cracks, no flaws at all. And then we meet Rosie, the daughter, who's knows her mom has very high standards, and her friends tend to be those that her mother doesn't approve of. And you find out that the mother's not all wrong. So that's the perfect family that you meet. And then you find out that the father's actually thinking of having an affair with this very artsy colleague that he met that sort of affirms his more artsy side. And the mother is kind of dreading the next dinner party, and the daughter, this is where she really got me. Gail was very, very sneaky. the daughter gets embroiled in something that you do not see coming and still knocks you for a six, and will surprise you. And it kind of brings them all together again. So what's also interesting is it's a Jewish family. So I learned a lot about little Jewish customs throughout. And most of the conversations in this book take part in various coffee shops, which is where we do tend to sort of spill our guts really when we're talking to someone, you know, with a good cappuccino there. So I would highly recommend this. It's just pure escapist, really good writing. And I must say, I met Gail at the Franschhoek Literary Festival, and I joked with her. I took a 200 Rand bet that she said she's going to write a pure chick lit book. And I said, no way. There's going to be a murder, a dirty secret. So I'm happy my 200 Rand is coming to me. So she's not capable of pure chick lit, but it's really good.
Fantastic. So I guess the perfect thing to do is have a cup of coffee every time you read this book.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can also explain Gail Schimmelman.
Yeah. So that's also, I think, a fantastic book club title. You know, if you're looking for something for book club.
Everyone will relate to something in there. If it's a mother-daughter dynamic, or absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much, Frances. Okay, Amara, over to you for your second title.
So I've got a Father's Day gift. Sorry.
I love Jo Nesbø.
Oh yes, absolutely fantastic. This is the latest of the Hattie Hole series. It's called Killing Moon. It's number 13 in the series, so not a good place to start with the series, but it's really, this is more like a PSA, like just everybody should know that there's a new Jo Nesbø coming out, or is out already. It's already available in stores. Yeah, so he does really good thriller writing. Hattie Hole is a former cop that still does investigative stuff, but he's sort of dark and moody and going through a lot of trauma. And you just, you really sort of, if you can imagine Jack Reacher, but Norwegian, that is what Hattie Hole is. So if you have somebody in your life who absolutely loves Jack Reacher or loves a good thriller, Jo Nesbø is definitely somebody to go into, and the latest one is now available. If you haven't read any Jo Nesbø's before, the first one's called The Bat. Give that a good go. It's really worth it, and you get really invested, and it just gets better and better with every book. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amara. Yeah, what a fantastic Father's Day.
The killer in this one is like a real psychopath, like serial killer psychopath in Norway. So it's fantastic. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, Samantha, over to you for your second title.
Thank you so much. So I go from a really sad and beautiful story to a more, flirty book talk type story. So we have Savvy, and Savvy is she's one of those girls who just deals with life, as it comes. She has a very highly stressed job, but is also thankless. So everything just one day just ends. Like her boyfriend leaves her kitchen starts falling apart, and it almost feels as all the cooking recipes that her grandmother has taught her, she's all forgotten. So she decides, you know what, this is it. I'm actually just gonna throw in the towel and I'm gonna start brand new, like new haircut, new me type of story. So she starts from the outside in, and she starts working on her body, on her life. She's trying to get track of, renovating her kitchen. But the more she's trying to work on all these renovations and doing all of these things, like more and more bad things start happening to her. She passes out during hot yoga. It turns out that she made a very presumptuous comment about someone that she met, and then this guy turned out to be her contractor, and she just can't seem to stop bumping into her ex and his new upgrade. So she, has to now completely reevaluate everything else again, and she thinks that she should have actually started with inside and then going outside. So this is her story, and we follow her as she tries to make the best out of life.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
Is there a happy ending?
Say again, Frances?
Is there a happy ending?
Well, you're gonna have to read to find out.
This sounds so much like a Netflix movie, like maybe when it happen, it's just for that market, the complete market. So yeah, wonderful choice. Thank you so much. All right,
Thanks.
now we're into the final round. So Yaku, over to you for your final book.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to a slightly more serious sort of note for my final book. So we need a little bit of balance in life, I suppose. So the latest Isabel Allende. So this will be available in June. It's not out yet, but within the next week or two, it should be on the shelves. And so the story starts in 1938 in Vienna, and this little boy, Samuel, whose father disappears on the Kristallnacht in Vienna. And his mother realizes there's great danger coming their way. So she quickly decides to organize a seat for her little son, Samuel, on the last train of these Kindertransport trains that leave from Austria to England. The only thing he gets to take with him is one change of clothes and his little violin, and then never sees his parents again. Then on another timeline in Arizona in 2019, we've got this 7-year-old girl, Anita Diaz. She and her mother is boarding a train. They're heading for America, trying to flee the violence in their home country of El Salvador. She's also a blind girl. And then by the time that they reach the border in America, the Trump government has just implemented this family separation policy, which leads to her being separated from her mother, spending time alone in a camp, basically just sort of escaping into her sort of fantasy world to try and make things better for herself. Luckily for her, her case has been assigned to this young social worker, Selena, who enlists the help from a lawyer. And together they discover that Anita actually has a family member who has got a legal residency in America. And this family member just so happens to work for an elderly man called Samuel, who's obviously the Samuel who managed to escape from the Nazis back in the 30s. So through these stories, Isabel sort of weaves the impact of immigration and war, and she looks at the sacrifice that parents are always willing to make to ensure that their children have a better future. And she also sees this as a love letter to the youth who's always sort of dreaming and trying to make a better world. This is definitely a more serious book from Isabel Allende, but she's definitely the master at telling this kind of story. And essentially, she looks at the kindness of strangers and how that always sort of helps and hedges against the violence of governments.
Yeah, I can say I think this is going to be one of those ones we need tissues with you. It's going to be like heartbreaking in some of these scenes.
Yeah,
I can just see you talking about it.
Yeah.
But that author, I mean, she's sold so well, and I think like even Violetta, the previous book there, it sold so well. So it's definitely a huge fan base for her readership. So it's really exciting to be reading a new book.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah, she's really excellent.
It's so lyrical and beautiful that you get swept along by her language, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
It's got an amazing shout out there from Cardosini as well, a grand storyteller. You know, that's fantastic. So that's just what she is. So yeah. Okay, thank you, Yaku, for your last title. So now, Sunay, it's over to you for your final title.
Hey, thank you, Thomas. Just get this up here real quick. Okay, so last up today, we have from Mike Hoare, Congo Mercenary. So this is definitely an interesting look at a very specific time in military history. So in July 1964, after gaining independence from Belgium, the Democratic Republic of the Congo came under threat from an armed rebellion that spread rapidly throughout the country. And then Mike Hoare, based on his past experience and his expertise, was brought in with a small team to overthrow this rebellion. And this is basically the story of how they helped liberate the country of the Congo from this rebellion, and all the strategy behind it, the whole history. So anybody interested in military history or just wants an interesting, gripping read about a little known piece of military history should definitely find this interesting. Yeah, so they did everything from freeing European hostages to bring order back. They finished multiple campaigns in a very short amount of time, so definitely something worth looking into. And this Mike story even inspired a 1978 war film called The Wild Geese, starring Richard Burton and Roger Moore. So anything that has been adapted to screen, we know there's definitely something there. So yeah, I would definitely, even if you think military history or something like this is in your thing, it's worth looking into. Should be very, very interesting.
Perfect, wonderful. Thanks so much, Shanae. And also, it's also another nice like Father's Day gift as well for anybody who likes like military history. You know, that's wonderful. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. And Mike Waugh has written quite a few books on all his military experiences. So someone interested in the subject should definitely recognize the name. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also it's from Pen and Sword, which is so well known for their military history books. So yeah.
Exactly, yes.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks so much, Shanae. So now we're on to Francis for your final book.
Here I am, I'm bringing it all home with Desiree Ellis. I don't know if you can see, it's Magic,
Magic.
Desiree Ellis. This is her autobiography, or written by a close friend, but I mean, she dictated the whole thing. So Desiree Ellis, if you didn't know, she's sort of the female soccer equivalent of Rassie Erasmus. That kind of helped me put her in perspective, because I'm not very sporty. So she played for Banyana Banyana, and she's been the coach of Banyana Banyana for the past 30 years. So a player and a coach, and now she's involved in soccer in a more sort of national way. And she is taking Banyana Banyana to the Soccer World Cup. So, I mean, amazing legacy she's left behind it. And I didn't realize, but there's a mural called Magic, which was her name when she was a player, in Salt River. You must see. It's there, and it still hasn't been tagged over or anything, which shows the respect the community has for her. And this just is a very readable account of growing up poor in Salt River, being bullied by older boys, not really knowing how to retaliate, taking up sport as kind of a form of getting fit, really falling in love with soccer and the sport, playing in her barter toughies on the streets of Salt River, and then eventually becoming a really good player and, you know, a coach and so on. But a really humane, gentle look at who she is and the legacy she leaves behind. So if you like sports biographies, or you want to know more about sort of female sport in South Africa, I think this is a really good place to start.
And I think also like a great inspiring story, you know, for females, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Very
I
inspiring.
mean, and she's done so much for Banyana Banyana. Like, I think when she became coach in 2018, they weren't even in like the World Cups or anything like that. And I think most recently they won the African Cup of Nations. So like, props to her. She's doing a great job. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah, she's a phenom. She really is.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Wonderful. Okay,
Yeah.
Amara, over to you for your final title.
Yeah, so every time I come on to Reader's Warehouse, I always do a cookbook. And I think it's like becoming a staple now. So the one I'm going to talk about is the Karen Dudley Onwards. For those who don't know who Karen Dudley is, she is a Cape Townian chef. And she used to have a restaurant in Woodstock called The Kitchen. Okay, so she's done cookbooks before, a week in the kitchen, another week in the kitchen, and then this one, which is called Onwards, because in COVID, unfortunately, one of the repercussions was that she had to close the kitchen. And so we've got Onwards, which is how she's moving forward. It's got very much a similar style and design as A Week in the Kitchen. And the book and the inside is really, really nice as well. The pictures are all really beautiful and moody, and the recipes are fantastic. I can vouch for it. Our CEO also cooked it over the weekend, and he was like, they're amazing. And they're really, really, really good recipes. And The Kitchen was a vegetarian restaurant, so it's very much a veg forward cookbook. And it's absolutely stunning. I will say that it is not for the layman cook. It's not for the everyday cook. It's definitely layered with flavors. So, and it's actually what I really love about it. So each recipe for like what the salads and things like that is you first have to make this crisp, and then you have to make this, and then you just layer it, and it just takes your food to another level. So it's for people who want to expand on their knowledge and how to build flavor. So yeah, for example, this one is a melting caramelized cabbage with ginger fennel s'more. I mean, I don't know if you can see, very, very stunning. But then you have to first make the ginger fennel s'more and then the caramelized cabbage and then serve it up with yogurt and things. But it's worth it for the little bit of extra effort because the food is absolutely delicious. I mean, when I
Mara,
was
thanks
studying
for
this book
increasing our hunger.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm ready to go make myself something here, but unfortunately I'm at the office. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should go home early today. It's
Awesome.
just it's really nice. Look at that. Oh my goodness. It just makes the food look absolutely delicious.
Ooh,
Yeah, so that is my contribution to today. Let's all make Karen Dudley's food.
Yeah, I have to say, Karen is like almost like an Ottolenghi of South Africa in a sense of the flavor combinations, you know.
Yes, yes.
And I know I did ask, I think Amara as well, that when Karen once came to our store to sign books, someone asked her when will she put the lemon squares recipe in the book, and this one is in
Yes.
this book. Yeah,
Yes.
was one of the things she was very famous for in her
Yes.
kitchen.
Yeah.
And
Here we go. New lemon squares. There she is cutting the lemon squares. Yeah. Very nice.
She did an interview with Sarah Jane Kamala King on Cape Talk on the weekend, and just the way Karen talks about food, it makes you want to eat the food. It's like just the way she talks about it and how she talks about making the sauces and how sauces are so important, you know, in food and things like that. So
yeah, and the passion and the love for food, it's just, I mean, it's daily. And what I like about our local cookbooks, and like you can say that she's the South African Ottolenghi, and I would 100% make that comp. But sometimes with the Ottolenghi, you can't find the ingredients in South Africa, and with hers, you know that everything is available, you know, which is really, really nice.
oh, perfect. Thanks so much, Amara, for your final title. So we're on for the final book now. So Samantha, it's over to you for the final one. So yeah, let's see what you have.
All right, I will stick to what I know, which is,
I hear you.
sorry, Zora. So what I love about Zora is she is your beautiful, sort of nerdy type of bookstore owner. So she has her own DC bookstore. And she's doing everything in her power to make this like the cornerstone of the community. And so she's put everything into it, and she just doesn't have time for love or any of the, you know, little frills and thrills out there in life. And she's had this sort of crush on one of these authors, you know, DC comic authors, and she thought, you know what, let me ask him to come to my shop and, you know, do a whole presentation and, you know, have a book launch there or something. Maybe he'll agree. And then he does. And so she's smitten by all of this. And so she's sitting in the crowd, and there's this very snooty guy sitting next to her, and he's making all these comments, and she's just like getting so irritated. And then Lawrence she just imagined him being this charming, and he absolutely lives up to it. So he asks her out, you know, for dinner afterwards, and she she agrees. And then she discovers that the guy that was sitting next to her giving all these remarks is actually his best friend. And she's just like, how are they friends? Like, I cannot see this. Because they are so completely different. But then the more time she starts spending with the best friend, she thinks, you know, she discovers that he's actually very smart and very thoughtful. And he's also very interesting. So after years trying to avoid the dating scene, she's got two very potential candidates on her list, which she now has to struggle to juggle or to choose between. So can she make her bookshop still the pillar of the community whilst keeping her relationship going? And which one will she choose at the end of the day?
The love triangle.
Exactly.
The love triangle of notes, with books. What else do you need? You know?
With a bookstore, I mean, what else do you need? Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I know. What a great pick.
And that's my story. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Samantha, for ending on that such a great title. So thank you so much everyone for joining as well. So can you just share our top sellers quickly for everybody to see? So this is just the top selling adult titles at Reader's Warehouse for the past 2 weeks. So just to run through quickly our top 10, our Staying to Yaku, the new Johnny Steinberg title, is our 10th bestseller. His book about Winnie and Nelson Mandela. Number 9 is the latest rom-com from Emily Henry. Then a perennial favorite for the last 2 years, The Colleen Hoover at Ends With Us, the latest Harlan Cobain, and then Atomic Habit. And then our top 5, the latest book from Linda LaPlante, a Jack War novel thriller, is our 5th bestseller, Pure Evil. Number 4 is the Bonnie Garmis Lessons in Chemistry. Number 3 is the Kate Morton, still selling really nicely. A fantastic book. If you haven't read Kate Morton before, this is definitely one to pick up. Homecoming from Kate Morton. Number 2 is our Alistair Riley Harry Whittaker title, Atlas, the story of Parcel, still getting great reviews on our website at the moment. We have a competition running. If you review it on our website, you could win a 500 Rand voucher, but still been a fantastic seller. And then number 1 for the past 2 weeks has been the Andre de Ruyter title, Truth to Power, his story about what's happening in Eskom. Still, everyone's talking about it, and it's been our bestseller for the past 2 weeks. So that is
really good to read. It's really good.
that's what people are saying.
It's really good.
Yeah, when Gabby spoke about it 2 weeks ago, she says it's almost like reading a thriller, but it's actually it happened in South Africa. Yeah. Okay, well, that is it for this week. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It was wonderful. We'll be back next Monday to talk about children's book recommendations. But until then, happy reading, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. The live is over. Thanks, Francis.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Samantha.
Bye-bye, Thomas.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Thomas.
Jackie.
See
Keep
you.
well.
Cheers,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone. Thanks, Thomas.